Hi, this is Mario Bernardi of the Grand Tour Europe. This is the fifth and last episode of the quarantine talks about Raphael's room in the Vatican. I made four episodes already. First one was a general introduction, then the room of Constantine, which was the last one that was made, then the Stanza della Segnatura, the first one was frescoed. We saw in the last episode the Stanza di Lodoro, the room of Heliodorus. This one is the one with the fire of Borgo that you can have here. It's a beautiful image. Unfortunately, I think this is the only one that we are pretty sure that Raphael worked on. The other ones were mostly made by the hands of pupils, although the general idea of the composition is by him. And I would like to also to add a little Easter egg or a little extra at the end of this series. So please stay tuned and watch to the very last. Now we saw that all the main aim of all these rooms was basically to represent the ideology of the church at the beginning of 1500. Now by the time the Raphael and his pupils were working on this room, Raphael, Pope Julius had died, and Pope Leo the ten had taken its place already in the room before. And here we have now a different theme. Now, the Fire of Borgo is not a myth, but like a kind of a legendary um, happening where the Pope from the Vatican, this is how the Basilica of St. Peter looked like till end of 1500s, till it was demolished to build a new one. And this is the Pope Loggia. So it's about Pope Leo IV. In the Middle Ages, he witnessed a fire of Borgo, his neighbor around the Vatican. And by blasting it from the window, he stopped the fire. The fire is not represented like a fire of the Middle Age city, but they're classical columns, and these look like classical heroes. Look at the body of this guy. And then there is a man here, which is a very familiar sight for whatever was acquainted with Roman art. It's Aeneas, the hero that escaped Troy on fire. If you've watched the movie Troy, you find him is I think it's Orlando Bloom that plays that guy, and then he escapes from burning Troy with his father on his shoulder and with his son Ascanio Julio on the side. Now this vision is very important because it represents a lot what uh, the classical heritage, the Greek and Roman heritage represents for the Italian Renaissance. And somehow I would like to take a minute to bring this to our time, to our current situation, where Italy is being criticized by some because of the lockdown, because of a lot of restrictions that have been put on a lot of businesses to protect mostly the vulnerable ones, because of course most adults will be fine even if they get the virus, but a lot of elderlies won't. And always like to bring up Aeneas that escapes, bringing his father on his shoulders. So, of course, at the moment where the city has been destroyed and the Trojans were being slaughtered by the Greeks or were taking prisoners, slaves, a lot of men were slaughtered. Of course, carrying your father will be slowing you so much. But he had to do it. And the fathers, it's represent the past, represents really who you are. And while the son represents the future. So Aeneas, he does everything he can to save his father from the tragedy as long as and saving his son and also carrying a chest. And so this represents the past and the future. We are humans as long as we can carry our heritage with us and as long as we have a future ahead of us. And it's a very important teaching, especially in this difficult time. And then we have a very dramatic scene here. This woman with the hands up, the hair, flowing in the air, the kids, the children. It's very dramatic, everything. The little toddler here with the hands to his head, another group of figure here. So here, Raphael really masters now this idea of using different levels of depth, different actions. The fire here with people with bases, beautiful classical bases, classical figures. His arms now are getting so big and the shoulders so big. This reminds me a lot of Michelangelo. He was doing a lot of sneak peeks at the Sistine Chapel. He might have absorbed by then all the elements. Of course, Sistine Chapel ceiling was finished by 1512. So while when this was frescoed already, Michelangelo had not just finished the chapel, also had left Rome and went back to Florence. Now, the Other wall has a very important episode, the incoronation of Pope of Emperor Charlemagne. Now, it was Pepin basically that acknowledged the supremacy of the church, the importance of the church, and the kingdom of the church. But it was really Charlemagne who came to Rome, and in the Christmas night of 800 A.D., inside the Basilica of St. Peter, he was declared emperor by the Holy Roman German Empire. Here we have the Pope with the traits of Leo X. We have a wonderful uh, fresco, sorry, a wonderful portrait of the Pope. This is made by Raphael as well. The two cardinals, the cardinal amongst them, there's the Cardinal Giulio de' Medici, Pope Clement VII. And we have the Pope. You see, he's a bit chubby guy with big googly eye, and this beautiful painting is in the Uffizi Gallery. Actually, right now, as we're speaking, he's in Rome in the exhibition about Raphael to celebrate the 500 years um, death of Raphael. Look at the level of the detail. This is the reflection of a window in the chair brass ball. It's beautiful. Now, let me get back to our guy, Iris pitch here. And then the man portrait here with the ball, symbol of power, and the lily, symbol of France. He is Francis the First, who in 1515 had become King of France, and he was one of the most powerful and influential men of his time, which I do have. Uh, yeah, this is a painting which is in the Louvre in Paris, and you can see big nosed guy with a beautiful dress. In this case, the portrait is basically the dress. The dress makes the portrait. When you say dress to impress, well, this is a very good sample of what it means, dress to impress. And so it symbolizes not only a friendship with the French, but especially a real act of submission of the political power to the religious power. The church keeps banging on the same spot. The spiritual life is more important than the practical life. Spiritual power is more important than the um, political power. You have again this beautiful architecture. This architectural details show us how Raphael loved architecture, classical architecture, Roman architecture. By 1515, he had become the kind of superintendent. He was in charge of the Roman architectural monuments and heritage, and he was very interesting into that and studying it. In fact, when he died, he asked to be buried independent. And you have a number of figures bringing here tables, golds, treasures, cardinals that would have been in Rome at that time, and a number of other contemporaries here, including the singers. Of course, it's not a celebration without some good music. The details of the flags, the standards, everything is made to perfection. The only word we can describe, this is the sun, of course, looking, we can describe this image as perfection. And then going around, this one which I often neglect, this one, but it's actually quite interesting, is the oath of Gregory the Ninth, which in difficult times make an oath to be faithful to God and God only. It's a statement of the Pope really wanted to make this statement about the fact that really you should be only relying and being, let me get a better detail of it. You should only be obeying to God and the oath you make to God. Let me get the pictures again. This have slightly different, yeah, the justification of Pope Leo III. And here you could see, yeah, that's the Pope again is Leo. It's the other episodes of the life of various Pope Leos during the history. And yeah, in the portrait it's him. You can see all the clergy around and nobles, and these beautiful nobles with these beautiful fancy outfits here. And then we have the Battle of Ostia. which is one of my least favorite, but it's quite interesting. So around 1850, there was a league set up with several Italian states in order to defeat the Moors. At that time, they conquered Sicily, and they were basically raiding the Italian coast, a number of castles. You can see this fortification, the ships, and then the Pope Thanksgiving here, surrounded again by nobles, and this not extremely dignifying image of like the prisoners naked in front of the Pope. It's quite brutal show off of power. Now today we would basically have a big scandal about that, but then it was represented as an intervention of God protecting the Christians. We have these shields with the cross against, of course, um, pagans or the Muslims anyway, the enemy at that time. It's not extremely politically correct, but again, it's a beautiful representation of the figures intertwined into each other, and of course, it's news in action. So it gave them a bit of an occasion to play a little bit by the artist, but it's not really on my favorite. The ceiling is quite something because it was not painted by Raphael. Raphael had, um, of course, when he started working in the chapel, the rooms were already being frescoed by some artists and started, and there was a team of artists who should have done the job in 3 4 years instead of the nearly 20 years that it took. It took 16 years to paint them all, so about an average of 4 years per room, with an interruption of 2 years. And so this one was left because this was painted by this artist here, Perugino, which was uh, Raphael's master. So he couldn't call his master's artwork. And also, Perugino was still alive when Raphael was working there. Perugino actually died a couple of years after Raphael did. So, of course, it was not be the case of covering his master's work as a representation of Jesus Christ among saints and Godfather and other allegorical figures like the justice here. They are a very Perugino style, with these lovely faces, with this kind of um, harmony of the figures. Perugino was really a delicate and very, um, uh, say, elegant and very sophisticated artist. And Raphael started in this path. The first paintings by Raphael are very similar to the style of Perugino, but of course, as he became uh, more adult, more independent. He just moved on, and in a number of 10 years, he moved completely on from this style here to this. So it's very, and what it really impresses it is this we call them veil, these triangles. These are like called grotesque. In the late 1400s in Rome, they discovered the Domus Aurea, and all the artists who came to Rome, including Pittoricchio, Perugino, Raphael, Michelangelo, sneak into this underground cave to have a look at these frescoes made at the time of Emperor Nero, which are now still visible today. And they were amazed, and because they were partially underground and covered, they were looking like grottos, like caves. They were called grotto decorations of grotesque, and that's where the classical grotesque came from. Now, let's do add a little extra to this because the rooms were actually five. Now we only saw four. One was then repainted at the end of 1500s. Is the so-called room of the chiaroscuri. Now, when I started to work as a guide at the Vatican, it was normal part to walk through this room, walk to a tiny room which was used as a gift shop through this door here. We came through this door from the room of Constantine. Then you get through here, and then you pop out in the next room. Um, and then through here, you went into the Nicklin Chapel. This room is quite weird because it's divided into different sections by these pillars. And the chiaroscuri is basically this black and white representation of saints, which were originally painted by Raphael and his pupils, but then they vanished, they were unfinished, they were damaged, and they were completely repainted at the end of 1500. What I really love to show you here is the ceiling, which is amazing wooden carved ceilings. Some of the ceilings in the Vatican, another neglected aspect, are really, really amazing, and really you need to spend a bit more time with your um, looking up. What I really suggest as a kind of training before you go to the Vatican on tour, just train your neck to look up without being like blocked or something. So you can see some are evangelists, some are like proto martyrs, like St. Lawrence here with the grill. And then there's a Nicklin Chapel here, painted by Frangeli. We'll talk about Nicklin Chapel in another episode. I just want to get to different corners to get you show. This is from the other corner here. That's the chapel in here. And then the detail of the fresco. This beautiful fruit decorations. This is Mannerism art. Okay, so by 1580s or so. This is the dragon, the Pope Gregory 13. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you a little extra sample here. We are basically, let me get back onto the face of Raphael. So it's a good way to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this series, this 5 episodes. Now, next I will do, of course, the Sistine Chapel. You cannot not do that, and then I will be doing some episodes shorter, based only on one artwork at a time. So painting by Caravaggio, a statue by Bernini, and so on. I will be picking, random artworks here and there. But if you have a request, I will be glad to do following them. Last thing, please check our website for um, more and more updates on the blog. You will find a number of articles that will pop up almost daily. Okay, so thank you very much. Stay tuned. Looking forward to the next episode.